How you doing? Wee hours of the morning again. See if Robert's coming at you. Having gone through my summer shearing, I'm feeling shorn like a sheep or something. Meh. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. So back to the usual thing. It's been a weekly thing, but I've kind of slacked off over the last week or so. It's time to record another batch of the movies that got to me. Well, tonight, late at night, I want to talk a little bit about John Cassavetes. I hold this genius in very high regard. I mean, best known to the mainstream public as an actor. He appeared in such films as Dirty Dozen, Rosemary's Baby, good actor. The Killers, good actor. Played a lot of roles, was in a lot of good movies. What a lot of the mainstream public don't know is basically the fact that he had a whole string of movies he self-financed and got made himself. And, I'm just always looking to promote the indie spirit there. He was kind of cut out of a cloth very different from most other people. I'm going to be tackling more than one of his movies in this series, but tonight I want to talk to you about the one that's nearest and dearest to my heart, and that is Killing of a Chinese Bookie. And some of you may have seen this sucker, seen it in VHS or Blu-ray form. If you're kind of bent that way, of course, a lot of y'all are streaming these days, so you're not getting to see anything good. Well, maybe you are. I don't want to be like that. Cassavetes was something else, man. The way one friend who's kind of film buff described his style to me was kind of reliant on his other actors, and he had a whole stable full of great actors that he worked with. Just his wife, Jenna Rollins, who was absolutely brilliant. Ben Gazzara, Peter Falk, Seymour Cassel. A lot of these guys, and just absolutely fantastic actors. And he would almost kind of set up a situation like you'd say to this one guy, okay, so when I yell action, you've got to bust through this door and don't let anything stop you from getting through that door. And tell the people on the other side of the room, he'd say, okay, so when I yell action, this guy's going to come through that door, and all your jobs is to basically do everything you can to prevent him from getting in that door. And hence you kind of create that dramatic tension with his actors. But specifically, man, Killing of a Chinese Bookie, whew, what a movie. Most people who maybe are initially attracted to this movie are really put off by it. And the thing they're walking into with that, excuse me, if you go into this looking for your standard mafia movie, you're not going to get it. This is not action-packed. This is, it does involve mob characters, but this is not The Godfather, okay? This is not Goodfellas. Cassavetes hated violence. And he hated violence in movies, and he kind of saw it in ways, not like violence and killing don't take place in that film, but he was kind of looking to diffuse it in a way. And so, a lot of the grue and the violence, just the brutality you may come to expect with movies like that are not in this. But it involves Ben Gazzara playing the character of Cosmo Vitelli, I believe his name is, and he's kind of a little small-time nightclub owner. He owns this strip club, and it's kind of an oddball place because it's basically he runs like an old-school burlesque show, and it means a lot to him. He's got this wonderful, situation that he has set up. He thinks it's wonderful if no one else does, and they're all performing these musical numbers, and they're all doing these song and dance routines, and they've got this paunchy, sad sack comedian whose name is like, or MC/comedian whose name is like, Mr. Entertainment or Mr. Miraculous or Mr. Marvelous or something like that. And he's just kind of the sad sack that everybody picks on, but that's his place and that's his passion. The problem is Cosmo is kind of an inveterate gambler. And so he has things set up in such a way to where he goes out and he gambles at this mob gambling joint and ends up losing his ass. And so he's in so much debt at this point that these mobsters come to him and are like, all right, schmuck, we're going to give you a chance to make good with us. Here's what you do. We want you to go across town, and there's this little A-shaped building out there, and there's this bookie that works with the Chinese mafia, and we want you to off him. And it's going to be guarded by lots of people, and you're going to have a hell of a time getting in. But go in and off this guy, and then we'll cut you a break, then we'll forgive you. So he reluctantly goes to do this thing, and does succeed in killing this guy. The guy's sitting there getting his, little just kind of wading pool or a little private swimming pool or bathtub or whatever it is, like a giant jacuzzi or something, I'm not sure. And Cosmo walks in, goes in there, and it basically staring at the guy point blank before he shoots him, and just apologies like, I'm sorry, and kills him. And then he runs like hell, gets out, barely gets out with his life. And everybody freaks out because the mobsters tell him, well, you were never supposed to actually carry off that hit. That was a suicide mission, and there was no way it was ever going to succeed. But we sent you out there basically to try to shoot this guy and die because you didn't kill a bookie. You killed the head of the entire family. And now we're all in a whole lot of trouble. And so there's big skirmish, lots of shooting. Some guys die, some guys run away. Cosmo gets away and runs back to his club, bleeding from a bullet. And then goes and, continues working on his show. And, just managing his club, working on his show, what he cares about. And it's a very strange way to end this. It's kind of like if you were waiting for this thing to turn into Goodfellas, it's just not. It's basically you're following this guy and his life's passion with this decrepit little club, but the indelible image in the end there of just Cosmo standing there on a darkened street outside his club, as blood runs out of him, and like he loses his girlfriend that night when he gets patched up, and his mother, her mother, just kind of looks at him, and this great conversation that you can tell was improv. I mean, the dialogue's just really awkward, but it just explodes with tension, and the mother of his girlfriend, who is now leaving him, telling him, "You're gonna die. You might not die tonight, but you're gonna die." And we see him standing out there on the street in front of his club, and he might not die tonight, but it could happen eventually. And the parallel I could draw is that Cosmo is very much like Cassavetes, because this was a guy who dealt with the money men, hated the money men, and thought they ruined every good thing in the arts, thought they ruined movies, and he hated making compromises with them. And here's this guy, he's dealing with these sharks from the mafia, who, much like the money men in Hollywood, just nasty people, nasty money men who ruin everything. And as an independent artist, that was very frustrating to him at all stages of his career. And, of course, a lot of us, myself included, are independent creators, we do a lot of different stuff. We don't belong to big art houses or publishing houses or film companies or anything like that. We're just kind of out here doing what we want on our own terms, and not really making jack. And so, man, in a lot of ways, that movie kind of hits me right in the feels. It kind of hits a lot of us right in the feels. And, me and my wife had a couple of friends over, and we ran it, and I got drunk, and I think I wound up crying or something, but that was back when I was drinking. But, regardless of whether I would be bawling on a normal circumstance, it still does kind of get me. Still does kind of nail me. And, man, y'all need to check out Cassavetes. That's what I'm saying.